From the network that gave you a show so good it broke your heart, then gave you a finale so bad it broke your television, comes the latest attempt to make you forget that the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones existed. No red wedding, no purple wedding, no writing team apparently allergic to consistency. Just a big dumb night, a suspiciously clever egg-shaped child, and a Westeros that somehow feels more alive than anything with $100 million budget, and a dragon that forgot what it was doing mid-scene. This is a Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And, yes, it's actually good. We're as surprised as you are. Let's be honest about what this show actually is before you go in expecting dragons and political betrayal, and someone you love dying horribly in the 3rd episode. This is not that show. This is the show that exists in the gap. 100 years before all the incestuous blondes and the power-hungry aristocrats and the endless debates about who deserves to sit on a chair made of swords. Instead of watching noblemen scheme their way across a continent, you are now watching a homeless man with a sword try to not embarrass himself in public. That is the entire premise. That is the whole thing. And somehow, against every reasonable expectation, it works better than most of what came before it. Meet Dunk. Full name Sir Duncan the Tall. But everyone in the show treats him like his full name is Sir Big Dumb Disaster the Perpetually Confused. He is a hedge knight, which in Westeros is just a fancy way of saying a guy who sleeps outside and owns a horse he probably can't afford to feed. His master dies at the very beginning, which is the most Game of Thrones thing the show does, and from that moment forward, Dunk is completely alone in a world that keeps reminding him how stupid and large and unimpressive he is. Everyone tells him he's stupid. His master told him. Random knights tell him. Strangers at tournaments tell him. And the really devastating part is that Dunk half believes it. He carries this weight around like a second set of armor. This constant low hum of, I'm not good enough, and I've already messed this up, and everyone is going to figure out I don't belong here. And yet, somehow, you are completely on his side from the very first scene. That is not easy to do. That takes actual writing. Then along comes Egg, short for Aegon. He is a bald child with suspicious intelligence, suspicious work ethic, and a family history so catastrophically complicated that the show wisely decides to just let you figure it out slowly, rather than dumping a wiki page on your head. He does the chores, he catches the fish, he grooms the horses. He is more competent than Dunk in almost every practical situation, and yet he follows Dunk around like Dunk is the most impressive person he has ever met, which tells you everything you need to know about Egg's previous life before running away from people who made all the worst decisions in Westerosi history. Together, they form the most unlikely duo, since whoever decided to pair a direwolf with a child who would immediately lose the direwolf. Dunk is the muscle with the feelings. Egg is the brain with the secrets. They complete each other in the way that makes you realize good character writing doesn't actually require dragons or prophecy or a throne. It just requires 2 people who genuinely need each other and don't quite know how to say it. Now, no visit to Westeros is complete without a tournament, because nothing in the history of fantasy storytelling moves a plot forward faster than putting a bunch of violent men in armor and telling them to sort out their feelings with lances. The tournament at Ashford is where everything explodes. Not literally, there are no explosions. This show has a budget that respects itself, but emotionally and politically and in every way that actually matters. Here you will meet Lionel Baratheon, who carries the energy of someone most likely to have suspicious white powder at a Renaissance fair and absolutely zero apologies about it. You will meet Manfred Dondarrion, a man whose primary personality trait is loving prostitutes, which is historically accurate to the Game of Thrones universe, where that is practically a noble house tradition written into the Constitution. You will meet Raymond Fossaway, a squire so aggressively eager to ditch his own family and hang around Dunk that you will feel like you're playing the first hour of GTA 4 waiting for Roman to stop calling you about bowling. And then, at the center of it all, you will meet Prince Aerion Targaryen, who was born too late to ride a dragon, too early to fight White Walkers, and arrived just in time to become the villain of a story that doesn't need anything more complicated than one genuinely horrible person doing a genuinely horrible thing and facing actual consequences for it. Revolutionary concept, Someone alert the Season 8 writers. What makes the tournament arc work? And this is the part where you realize the show understands something the later seasons of Game of Thrones completely forgot, is that the stakes are personal. Nobody is fighting for the Iron Throne. Nobody is trying to control an army, or broker an alliance, or deliver a monologue about destiny while standing on a cliff. Dunk is fighting because someone did something wrong and he cannot let it go, and he is too stubborn and too principled and honestly too not smart enough to find a clever way out of it. That's it. That's the whole engine. A man who believes in something simple in a world that keeps telling him simple beliefs are for fools. And you will sit there watching 30-minute episodes in beautiful, real locations with action you can actually see without adjusting your screen brightness 17 times. And you will feel something dangerously close to hope, which is a feeling this franchise has not reliably produced since the Red Viper said he was going to win and you foolishly believed him. Now let's talk about what this show is doing that the franchise has been desperately trying to do again ever since the finale aired, and everyone collectively decided to pretend the last 2 seasons were a fever dream they had after eating bad cheese. It is building consistent characters. That sounds like the lowest possible bar. That sounds like something you should be able to say about any television show without it being a compliment. And yet here we are, specifically noting that the characters in this show behave like the same people from one scene to the next, which in the context of this franchise is genuinely worth celebrating. Dunk in Episode 1 and Dunk in Episode 3 are recognizably the same human being with the same fears and the same values and the same unfortunate tendency to make things dramatically worse right before he makes them better. This is called character consistency, and it used to be a thing this universe did extremely well, and then somewhere around Season 7 it became a casualty along with logical travel times and Jaime Lannister's entire arc. The world building in this show operates on a frequency that rewards people who did the reading and does not punish people who absolutely did not. You do not need to know the entire history of the Targaryen dynasty to follow Dunk and Egg. You do not need a spreadsheet of noble houses and their sigils and their centuries of grievances. The show gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it, and trusts you to keep up, which is a level of audience respect that feels almost aggressive after years of television that stops to explain its own jokes. The names are vaguely familiar: House Tyrell, Baratheon, Dondarrion, like a song you half remember from a long time ago. The locations carry that specific quality of almost recognition that makes Westeros feel like a real place that existed before the cameras and will continue existing after they leave. King's Landing without the Red Keep drama. Lannisport without a Lannister monologue about gold and winning. Just places where everyday people live and work and occasionally get boiling oil poured on them for reasons that make complete sense in context. The production design deserves a specific and extended moment of appreciation, because this show made a decision that more television needs to make. It went outside. Real castles, real fields, real light that comes from the actual sun, rather than a rendering farm in a building somewhere. The result is a Westeros that feels lived in and dirty and physical, in a way that $100 million CGI spectacle sometimes fails to achieve precisely because it's trying too hard. When Dunk walks through a market, the market feels like a place that smells bad and has flies, and contains people who are not extras waiting for their cue, but actual human chaos happening at normal human speed. It is a small thing that creates an enormous effect. It makes you care about what happens in these places because these places feel real enough to care about. And then there is the ending. And without going into details that would ruin the whole experience for you, this show commits to something that the later seasons of Game of Thrones ran away from screaming. It commits to consequences, real ones, the kind that don't get walked back in the next episode, or explained away with a monologue, or quietly dropped because the writers needed to get to the ending they wanted, regardless of how the characters got there. Things that happen in this show matter. Choices stack up. The tournament doesn't end with a twist that resets everyone back to neutral. It ends with weight, the specific heavy feeling of watching someone do the right thing and pay a real price for it, which is the core of every great story this franchise has ever told and the thing it forgot how to do: right around the time it decided to resolve years of character development in 40 minutes. Dunk pays. Egg pays. The story earns its ending. And you will sit there in the quiet after the final episode, feeling something this franchise used to reliably make you feel before it broke the contract. You will feel like the story respected your time. So breeze through this one. It is not the next Game of Thrones. It is not trying to be. It is a small, focused, beautifully made side quest in a world you thought you were done caring about. And it will remind you why you cared in the first place. 30-minute episodes, no grand politics, no world-ending stakes, just a big dumb knight who believes in something, a bald kid who knows more than he lets on, and a story that ends without making you want to put your fist through the drywall. In this franchise, in this economy, that is not a small thing. That is everything. And until George R.R. Martin finishes Winds of Winter, which, let's be honest, is not a sentence that means anything anymore, this is what we have. And what we have is actually pretty good, which is more than we deserved, which is more than we expected, which is, at the end of the day, exactly what a knight in a world without dragons is supposed to be. Just enough, just in time, and just honest enough to admit it.